Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to our CESMII studios in our broadcast of 6 Degrees of Smart Manufacturing. I am Conrad Leyva.
And I'm Mike Yost.
And in this series, we cover different perspectives and topics on smart manufacturing from the many points of view of manufacturers, practitioners, engineers, integrators, educators, researchers, and consultants. The many people involved on the smart manufacturing journey. You know, today we have a 20-minute chat here among us with Mike and us on smart manufacturing concepts. You can use the Q&A feature to send us questions. If we run out of time, we will answer those questions in our LinkedIn group, and we will give you that link at the end of the show.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Conrad, and welcome everybody. Just really quick background for all who are new to our series. We talk about 6 degrees of smart manufacturing, leveraging the concept of 6 degrees of separation, that we're very close, only 6 degrees or fewer social connections away from knowing every person on the planet. And so from our perspective, we believe that getting access to the concepts and access to the knowledge and the people who have been practitioners and are practitioners in manufacturing and in the solution space is the best way for us to share knowledge, grow the knowledge base, and get us closer to the knowledge that we need to make smart manufacturing a reality for everybody. So for today, we wanted to come back and address a topic that we introduced a short while ago, the concept of smart manufacturing imperatives in what we call the Smart Manufacturing Truth Table. And if you have not seen that, the session that we ran on the Truth Table, would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel or our website and watch that video. But for those of you that have, or for the conversation today, we're going to focus on one specific imperative, and that is imperative number 7, the sustainable manufacturing imperative. So with that, Conrad, I'm going to ask you to introduce that and talk to the folks here about why we believe sustainable manufacturing is so important to smart manufacturing.
Yeah, so just to repeat a little bit, it's an and story. All of these are important. But today we're going to drill down on one, and we're going to keep doing that in future episodes on each one of these imperatives. But today we're going to talk about sustainability and energy efficiency, and how if you don't focus on that dimension, you end up with wasted resources and wasted energy. Why is sustainability an imperative? You know, how important this is to smart manufacturing, that there's the story of the institute name of CESMII. So it originally was named or was going to be named the Smart Sensors and Digital Process Controls Institute. But the DOE felt so strong about the synergy between sustainable manufacturing and smart manufacturing that the institute was named the Clean Energy and Smart Manufacturing Institute. And today we're going to talk about, make that case for that intersection a little stronger than we have in the past.
Yeah, and Conrad, we definitely want to jump into that. I'd like to start, however, with a bit of a fly in the ointment, or whatever the right phrase would be here. A book I've been reading recently that sort of paints sustainability in a somewhat different light. So this is a book by Naveen Jain called Moonshots, which is a great book. But you'll see right at the beginning on page 10, he talks about how people have become convinced that sustainability is the answer to responsibly managing all of the dwindling resources that we have, but it is our greatest peril by far. Far more disruptive, far more than the possibility of these disruptions and nukes and things like that. And just one other point to illustrate off of that, talks about the fact that within the resources available on our planet, that within the next 30 years, we're going to need at least twice as much of everything we consume today. water, energy, healthcare, all those sorts of things. So he makes the point that just trying to be sustainable isn't going to be sustainable. So before we jump in and make the case for sustainability, what are your thoughts on that?
And well, I totally agree with Naveen. I mean, he feels very strongly about this, but something to stress is also that the industrial sector is a big part of that sustainability question. I mean, in the U.S., it's estimated that the industrial sector accounts between 30 and 40% of the energy consumption in the U.S. And that might fluctuate a little, but it's been pretty constant in the last 20 years. And even though renewable energy keeps increasing as a percentage of the source of energy, it's still a small percent. So it's a very important topic. And not just because of the environmental impact, it's also good on the wallet. And I think, Mike, you have some numbers to share there.
Yes, we do. And I think just one point that I would add to that in response to the quote is that I think it plays in with your point, Conrad, that smart manufacturing is an and story. So, we have to save energy and we have to be finding new resources, right? And that's part of, I think, at the foundation of what I believe is the differentiated story about smart manufacturing. We can solve I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of people solving specific problems in manufacturing. The question is, how do we solve them all at scale, right? More of that and story. So to your point, Conrad, this is a chart from some research that was produced through our institute, and just showing the potential energy savings across different industries. And I'd say it's a pretty conservative model. You see at the bottom is talking about just 10% adoption to drive across industries at this level will drive upwards of $200 billion worth of energy savings. And I think that the point that I would make here is probably two other points. There's savings at the line level, and there's savings across an entire supply chain. So from a unit level and how things are managed from a performance perspective, how precise we are in our processes, to how productive we are across an entire supply chain, all has potential energy impact. And that aligns with our positioning within the Institute. We talk in terms of manufacturing productivity driving energy productivity, right? And so you may or may not be focused energy as your primary focus, but if you are getting the operational value, that'll drive the energy value that goes with it.
Yeah, and these numbers focus on optimization of process and the results of that optimization. It doesn't even include the impact of the reduction of waste and the opportunities in the circular economy that we're going to talk a little bit about coming up. But also, I think it's important to not underestimate the secondary benefits that we get from pursuing sustainability. There's things like improving the brand image, signaling that corporate leadership and environmental stewardship, and enhancing the company culture. And as an example, one of our members, Johnson & Johnson, has made a public commitment to sustainability and as part of their PR. And they provide suppliers with a supplier sustainability toolkit, and they're tracking progress towards their goal. They have like a vision for 2030 where they have reduced a lot of these goal metrics, and they're tracking their achievement towards that energy and waste reduction goals.
Yeah, and that's just to back up that point, Conrad. I used to work for GE long time ago, and they had an Eco-Imagination program, which was all about leading with the focus on eco and sustainability and green. And there was an internal saying within the business that said, "Green is green." So pursuing these energy savings for the right reasons also was good business. So let's jump in, Conrad. Why don't you start to make the connection between smart manufacturing and sustainable manufacturing?
Yeah. So what do we mean by sustainable manufacturing, right? Here on portrayed on the right hand side, and it's let's define it as creating products that use processes that minimize the use of resources, conserve energy, and minimize the negative environmental impact. And there is so much synergy between the initiatives around sustainable manufacturing and the initiatives around smart manufacturing, that we should really be looking at them together. Because if we don't, we might miss an opportunity to to eliminate redundant efforts. So let's suppose these are worked in separate, right? And we come up with different standards for smart manufacturing and how we thread things together over there, and how we thread things together in sustainable manufacturing. If the standards are slightly different, that means manufacturers have to adopt different standards and different platforms, and that could mean for highly overlapping functions, and that could mean additional costs to manufacturers.
For sure.
There's also some overlap in enabling some new business models. So, for example, here we talk about the frugal economy, where business to consumer sharing has been a big movement out there with things like Uber and Airbnb. But now business to business sharing is growing. And there's farms that are sharing equipment and creating these groups that are sharing farming equipment. And there's businesses that are sharing office space and office equipment, and there are manufacturers now that are looking at how do they share some expensive resources like 3D printing capabilities, things like that, and that even extends into people and sharing people and highly skilled employee.
Yeah. Boy, does that take us down a path of all of the non-technical things that will be in the way of making those things a reality, but it's absolutely the right things to be considering and thinking about, right? I was just gonna ask you to draw the connection to CESMII, right?
Yeah.
Another point you wanted to go down there on the frugal economy.
Well, because to make all this happen, right, and the connection is that both initiatives need data. They need data to enable these new business models, to integrate these supply chains and new ecosystems and partners in new ways. And for example, integrate systems like the smart grid to the smart energy platform, right? So what we need is data, and that's a very common technology bridge between these initiatives. And the smart grid, so as an example, I might want to optimize the times of the day that I use energy. And that information is information that the smart grid is getting set up to provide to consumers and in a more dynamic way. And so that's a easy, simple to understand intersection point there of how I would consume data from the smart grid to help me optimize my manufacturing processes, to maybe run at times of the day that are more energy efficient and cheaper to run.
You used two words there in the conversation that you talked about data on one side and then information in another context, and sort of use them interchangeably. And I think that's a huge point that ties back to, again, what CESMII is all about, and what we're driving toward is the context around the data, right? So just having access, which we obviously do more and more today, to lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of data points doesn't necessarily mean that you understand the data points and you can put them into the context, which would say, I should make this decision, for this business reason.
Yeah, and just like we are looking at smart assets and smart facilities and smart manufacturing and the sustainability footprint, we're looking at smart cities within the smart grid and smart buildings, right? But those, guess what? We're running these plants in those smart buildings. So there is an easy transition and link and integration point between linking those smart buildings to our smart equipment into our smart platform and systems.
Right. So let's look at some examples here. Dig a little bit more deeply into this, because we could spend a whole lot of time on that previous image as well as here. So, any particular area you want to drill
well,
into?
as we drill down in these areas, something I mentioned just briefly, but I think an important point to stress is that we're looking at methods to optimize processes so they use less resources, but we're also looking at methods of reducing waste. And there are several forms of waste that are tied to reducing, for example, minimizing inventory. So it's not just about dark warehouses and the automation that we can put in a warehouse and that optimization that comes from that, but just reducing inventory out of the system, right?
Right.
Maybe you have some examples along that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, my first system, and this goes back, I hate to admit how many years this goes back, 2 decades or more. Putting in smart systems was for an HVAC manufacturer who was trying to keep up with their competition. And so for competitive reasons, they were trying to go more toward a make to order type of environment versus make to stock. So they put smart systems in place and ended up removing $37 million worth of finished goods inventory from the warehouse. Right, so that means the parts that had previously been sitting in their facilities didn't have to be produced, right? And all the energy that's associated with not making those products until they are needed. So you're absolutely right. There's a huge potential impact for driving that capability there.
And going back to optimizing energy usage, one of our partners, Penn State, has developed in collaboration with MIT a benchtop extrusion machine and a smart manufacturing curriculum around that equipment for hands-on learning with the students. And one of the exercises that I love that they were using is that they were monetizing the cost of energy and using it in an equation there to optimize the relationship between quality metrics and the cost of energy metrics. And that it was a trade-off. You can optimize, you can only reduce cost to some point, but your quality starts suffering. So they showed the mathematical model and showed students how to leverage machine learning, statistical process control and machine learning algorithms to optimize that relationship. So thanks to our partners, the next generation of workforce is going to be able to implement these types of optimization a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, Conrad, we are at the top of our, at the end of our 20-minute time here with folks. And sometimes we go to a bonus segment and go deeper. At this point, I'm going to suggest we not. I know there's a lot of conversation here still left on the table, but I would encourage everybody to be part of CESMII, to be inside with us and continuing this conversation. I think it's critically important, where we're driving with the truth table, where we're driving with education overall, what we're driving toward with the imperatives is that there needs to be a definition, right? There needs to be an understanding of what we mean by these different types of initiatives. And we're just scratching the surface here as to why sustainability, sustainable manufacturing is one of those critical elements that, we believe if it's going to fall under a definition of being smart in the future, this has to be one of the components, right? You have to be able to check that box that you're able to do things from a sustainable perspective, and do the other things. And obviously we will continue to dig into those other imperatives as well and go deeper from that perspective. So with that, again, I would encourage everybody to continue to engage with CESMII. There are a number of ways that you can do that. You can continue to be part of these series. We will be taking this recording and putting it on our YouTube channel and on our website. We will be posting links to it in our LinkedIn group. We would encourage everybody to join the LinkedIn group so we can continue the discussions online, in addition to joining the working groups and the institute itself. So,
and expect more educational resources to come from CESMII on these topics. We continue to keep working and drilling down on all these different dimensions and imperatives and guidelines for smart manufacturing. And coming up on the 23rd, don't miss Ethan Rogers from the Department of Energy, who's going to join us to talk about more opportunities for energy management and efficiency from the Department of Energy point of view, and share some of the initiatives they have going on and some of the research that they've done in these areas.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of 6 Degrees Manufacturing.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.